Hey, Emily.
Yes.
I was talking to Shalise last night and she said she didn't get a chance to screenshot all of the chat. Do you know if that's saved automatically or it is?
I saved it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I saved a copy too. I tried to break it up to each session. I saved this first session separately, and then I was going to save the second one and the third one. But I missed the second one, so I can break it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I saved it incrementally too. I just didn't separate.
I want to make I was like, I probably should have checked.
Emily did it better than I did, so.
Okay.
I haven't gone back and organized everything so that it's pretty, but it is saved.
Yeah, the way Zoom gives us this stuff, it's not very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, Melina, I think we have a copy automatically saved to our cloud as well.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, by the way, on that note, it seems we are recording right now. Did you want to do that or stop it?
I want to stop it.
Yeah.
Sharing this PowerPoint. I'm sure it's somewhere. I just don't see it.
Looks like we're going.
Awesome. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Melina Tamer. I'm the planner for the city of Plattsburgh. So tonight we're going to be talking about Ward 5 and the city's comprehensive plan. So we only have about an hour, so I'll keep this intro really brief, but I just wanted to say that the city is very excited to embark on this large-scale planning effort. The city's current comprehensive plan was drafted way back in 1999 in response to the base closure. So now we're here 20 plus years later, and we're taking a really hard look and surveying the existing conditions of the city and coming up with a strategic plan for economic stability, and not just economic stability, but economic success. I emphasize economics here because obviously that's the huge driver behind the vitality of a place, but we know that a place is more than just economics, right? It's the people who live here. So that's why we're here tonight, to hear from the community and give us some feedback about the place that we all live in and we all call home. We wanna make sure that this comprehensive plan is, one, comprehensive, and two, a people's plan, because you're who we're planning for. So we want to get your feedback. This first part of the presentation, we're going to ask some questions based on the existing conditions of the city and how you interact with that environment. And then that will help us focus and identify what makes Plattsburgh special so we can focus our efforts there. Next, we want to know what's missing and what can make it more vibrant, and not just vibrant temporarily, but how can the city be sustainable? And then we'll dive into your neighborhood, which is Ward 5, and some opportunities we see for change. But maybe you'll tell us, you know, we like our neighborhood as is, like we like our large lawns, we don't want sidewalks, we like that there's, you know, parking on both sides of the road, and that's all fine. So we're going to gather all of that information, and that'll help guide us when we develop our land use and our zoning codes. So we know that this plan and the zoning codes aren't going to solve all the city's problems, but they can at least help guide us in the right direction. And honestly, it's been such a long time since the city has taken a hard look at their existing conditions and coming up with a vision and a plan that now's the time. So like I said, we're going to ask the audience some questions, some poll questions. A poll will pop up on your screen and you'll have about 30 to 45 seconds to answer those poll questions. They're very easy. You know, 30 seconds sounds like it's fast, but they're very easy questions. And then we'll just have a brief discussion around the results of those questions. And then we'll dive into the meat of the discussion, which is opportunities for change. So we've pulled some imagery from Ward 5 that we think, you know, maybe some opportunities for change, for some new development, et cetera, some changes in zoning. So we'll have an open table discussion around those images. Of course, all the boring stuff, Zoom etiquette applies tonight. Please keep your mics muted until you have a comment to make, and then you can either use the raise hand option, or there's always the chat function if you're more comfortable with that. Lastly, we want this to be fun, so please stick around. There's virtual pizza at the end. There's no pizza, I lied. But anyway, we wish we could do this in person. Unfortunately, we can't, but we'll try to keep this engaging, interactive, and it'll be beneficial for all of us. So before we jump into the poll questions, I'd like to introduce our consultants who will be drafting the plan for us. We have Saratoga Associates with us tonight and Behan Planning.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Melina. My name is Dan Scheer. I'm with Saratoga Associates, and I am here for the virtual pizza as well. I wanted to welcome everyone here today. We're very interested in terms of what your input is specifically on Ward 5. because we'll look to take your words and put them into action. And this is the best opportunity for us to do that. So absolutely feel free with your opinions, positive and or negative, or what you hope for your ward. And we'll really appreciate that and take that information for future consideration. Working with me today is our friends at BN Planning, as Milena discussed, and also my project manager and my colleague, I should say, Emily Gardner. Emily?
Hey everyone, my name is Emily Gardner, as Dan mentioned, and I am the project manager for this project. We've been also working with the city of Plattsburgh on the local waterfront revitalization program and some of the downtown revitalization initiative projects. So we're excited to also hear your feedback about the rest of the city and your ward in particular. So thanks for joining us tonight. Michael?
You're on mute, Michael.
Thank you. Michael Allen here from BN Planning and Design. We're assisting in the comp plan process. And tonight I'm going to be peppering you all with some poll questions. So that's my job at this meeting. So let's get rolling.
All right. So this first slide is just an overview of the zoning in your neighborhood, Ward 5. Zoning controls what uses are allowed and the parameters around those uses. So how big a building can be, how dense a site can be, and other design standards. So I just wanted to give you an overview of what's allowed right now in your district. So right now, the zoning is a bit of a mix in Ward 5. It's pretty industrial around Route 9 where GP is, and it's residential and general business around the other neighborhoods along the water. It also includes the city beach, which is recreation related use. It's a great mix of uses along the waterfront. There's also a waterfront overlay zone with other restrictions, but we don't need to dive into that. But although this is a good mix of uses, it is very segregated. So, while we're talking about all of the pros and cons and issues in the city, we also need to be thinking about allowed uses, because the next step after the comprehensive plan is updating our zoning code, which is how we will enforce the comprehensive plan. So, the city is thinking about making our zoning a little bit more flexible to allow for a more mix of uses in our neighborhoods. This next slide is just a basic map of Ward 5. I just wanted to make it very clear about the area of the city that we're talking about tonight, which is North Plattsburgh. It includes Margaret Street, Miller Street, North Saley Avenue, and the city beach. And now we're jumping right into our polls, the fun part.
Okay. Yeah, first question here. We wanted to ask everybody, what's your favorite thing about Plattsburgh? Why do you choose to live here? We've given you a bunch of options, and I'm going to go ahead and you should see a pop-up on your screen right about there. And this should give you some options. We're going to give everyone a little time to think about this. But at the very end, if we have some questions about the results, can take some feedback from folks and see what everybody says. Give folks a few more seconds, and this is multiple choices. If you may have noticed, you can select more than one. We're not going to be mean about it. Okay, almost got everybody. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that and share the results. And so it looks like natural assets continues to be the winning choice among all of these that we've done. One thing we'd like to know is are there particular natural assets or natural features of the area that you had in mind, for example? And also it looks like recreational opportunities is coming in as second. We'd love to hear from folks if they have any thoughts on which particular recreational activities you like. Feel free to type it into the chat box, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. Or as Milena mentioned, use the raise hand feature. We're going to give folks an opportunity to talk when if you have something you want to share. Okay. Looking for anything. We can move on to the next question we wanted to ask is what type of development do you feel the city needs more of? And go ahead and launch that one and give some folks some time to think about that. Okay. And okay, I'm going to wrap this up and let's see what the results are. And it looks like mixed use. Surprising results here, a little bit different than some of the other wards, but mixed use, followed by light manufacturing and residential housing coming in third. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I do know that mixed use was pretty popular in some of the other. I'd be interested to know a little bit more about the industrial light manufacturing, because that's something we hadn't heard in some of the prior meetings. If folks have any particular ideas for that or thoughts on that, of what types or where, feel free to type it into chat or use the raise hand feature, and we'd like to get some more insight on that. Thank you. Okay. I don't see anybody posting anything just yet. We can keep moving until then. So the next question we wanted to ask, how would you characterize the current physical condition of Plattsburgh? Do you think it's well maintained, or does it need some love, or do you think it's in poor condition or worse? Okay, I'm gonna wrap things up here. Looks like we've got just about everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and end that and share the results. And pretty much agreement that needs some love. Bruce notes that Crete, City Hall, etc. in particular need love. So folks either believe it's needs some love or a little bit poor condition, and that's good. Believe it or not, it's good. It shows that it's something we need to address in the comprehensive plan. One thing in particular we'd like to hear from folks is, as Bruce has offered, anything in particular, is it the streetscapes or the buildings? If you have specific ideas in mind regarding that, let us know. What does the city need to focus on?
I think it's really interesting to note here that a lot of the comments we're hearing are that the city's own public buildings are the ones that need some love. City Hall, the Crate Center, etc.
Right. Okay. And for the next question, oh, Maddie points out the city parks are in need of a lot of work. So maintenance of the parks, it's a good point. Okay, thank you, Maddie. Next question we wanted to ask, what is your favorite thing about your neighborhood? Ward 5, why do you choose to live here? I'm gonna go ahead and ask, is it the location? Is it the availability of housing or accessibility to services, etc.? Courtney offers downtown building facades need work, creation of sidewalks to connect to different areas. Thank you, Courtney. Okay. Looks like we're getting close to having everybody. Just one or two more people haven't voted. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results of that. And location, it seems to be the #1 element, which I think is is a common theme everywhere. Everybody thinks that their ward is the best location to live in, which is great. There's a little bit for everybody. There's a little bit of recreational opportunities is coming in second, with accessibility and safety as third. So that is good.
I would love to hear why people think that Ward 5, their ward, is the best and why they chose to live there.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody has a comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel like speaking, you're a little shy, that's fine. You can use the chat feature. Otherwise, we really got to get people to come out of their shell and offer up. Art, I know you've spoken before. We'd love to hear from you. Do you have any thoughts? I'm gonna go ahead and give you the ability to unmute there. So, oh,
You're still muted, Art. And I think
there you go.
there you go.
What was the question, please?
We'd like to know why in particular you think your ward is the best, your favorite to live in.
Well, unfortunately, I'm in Ward 6.
Oh, that's right.
I just
told me that at the beginning of the meeting. I forgot.
Yeah, Ward 6.
We can start a rivalry.
I'm
here.
near everything. I'm near the hospital. I'm near the funeral home. I'm just a few steps from Brown's Funeral Home. Strand Theater, downtown, Zook's to get sandwiches. But I'm going to wait until I go on for Ward 6.
Okay, I just wanted to get somebody talking because we need to sort of break the ice and get people talking.
Michael,
Thank you for doing that.
I'll contribute. So we've been here from the Midwest for 2 years, and we originally moved to Set Point condos, largely because of lack of residential real estate, at least by comparison to what we're used to in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought that we'd just buy some time to become familiar with the area, and then move to somewhere else. Well, then we had an opportunity to buy a bigger condo this last fall, so we did, and we just simply moved across the parking lot. And never really expected to stay at Set Point, but the folks here at Set Point are fantastic, and it's a great little community. But what surprised me, I think, over the course of 2 years of being here is the proximity to the beach, starting essentially at iCare or the river, and then of course headed north towards, or up through the state park beach. I walk the beach year round, and it's generally somewhere between 2 and 5 times a week I walk it. So it's a big deal, but I just kind of humorously shared our experience in the sense that we expected to go back to single family housing and a typical, neighborhood, and we chose to stay here. And that's just, one significant element is the beach, the proximity to the beach. But yeah, so that's what I'll say about your question.
Thank you very much, Josh. I see Loretta, you have your hand up. I'll give you a minute if you want to share.
Yeah, hi there. Sorry for joining late. So I live on Cumberland Avenue, and I'm right across the street from the lake and right around the corner, literally from downtown. And as so many people, I was reading the chats, have mentioned, the proximity to downtown from Ward 5 is remarkable. And, I live in a lovely, quiet neighborhood, and I can walk around the corner and be in the middle of any festivities or music that's going on, or walking to restaurants, walking for coffee, walking to anything that's held downtown. And it's a marvelous feature, and we savor every minute of it. We've been here 26 years now, and it's our home.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I noticed walkability, proximity to downtown, being close to everything. A lot of people are mentioning that. One of the things we're going to dive into in a little bit is some of those connections and the walkability. So thanks everyone for that. We can jump into a couple more poll questions. I think they're going to touch on that proximity. The opposite question here is, you know, we all love the neighborhood we live in, but what do you think is missing? I'm going to go ahead and launch that. We'd like to know, what do you think is missing? And at the bottom, there's a choice for other. What did we, if we are missing a missing, let me know. Still have a few people. Again, this is multiple choice if you hadn't already figured that out. Still have a couple of people left to vote. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results of that. And it looks like affordability of housing and recreational resources are the two items that are missing. We are aware of some of the housing issues. That's something that's been a topic of conversation with us. And we'd be interested to know if folks have any thoughts on what particular recreational resources they would be looking for. We do know the city has a number of park spaces, but is it the activities or programming that you're looking for? Let us know about that.
Maddie has commented that there's not really a park with a playground in close proximity that's walkable.
Don't really have a park with a playground. Okay, that's good.
And Bruce is looking for some more bike lanes and a decision on the future of the Crate Center.
Mm-hmm. I'd love a playground in our, okay, so that's a good point. And I want to add, if you add playground, make sure it's in the shade or half in the shade, because I hate those playgrounds that are out like on the surface of the sun. So you just bake there while your kids are playing. Maddie, you had something you wanted to add. I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic for a second there.
So on the topic of playgrounds, I grew up in the city, and the summertime was all playgrounds and the city beach. And growing up, the city beach had go-karts and mini putt. I think they did bungee jumping at one point in time. In the summer in the parks, there was like a teenager or a college student that was working there and did like crafts. And when it was really hot, they had like a sprinkler system set up. And now that I'm a father and I have a son, I go to the city parks and they're really run down. There's not a lot of maintenance that's been put into them in a long time. The playground equipment's pretty dated. In our ward, the nearest playground is Penfield Park, or we could go to the school playground, but that's older kid equipment. We've got like the dock fitness area, and the couple monument parks, but we really don't have a playground for our children to play on.
Okay, thank you. Also, Tom notes programming at the parks would be a good start. Use the beach and strengths of the ward on the water. Courtney points out a sidewalk that connects Wilcox Dock to Margaret Street. There we go. Loretta offering a sailing club at Wilcox. And Courtney was asking, can there be a playground at Wilcox Dock?
Emily, I believe that was identified in our waterfront plan, correct?
Yes, it is. I was going to mention that. It is. It was one of the comments that we heard when we were working on the local waterfront revitalization plan. So it is something that we've noted for the future. So hopefully that could be something that the city could pursue.
Okay. Getting into the connectivity, one of the things we wanted to ask folks was how many times a week do you walk or bike to areas around, to shops and services around your neighborhood, like to go eat downtown? I'm guessing this ward might have a pretty high response rate on this one. Go ahead and get a feel for folks. How often? Boom, there it is.
Another comment while that's up too is the addition of a playground at the beach. So it's nice. So there's something other than just swimming, but.
And non-motorized boating opportunities at Wilcox.
And the point of all of these planning documents that the city is putting together is to identify these opportunities. So then when we go to apply for grants, we can identify that we've stated it in multiple planning documents that the community has expressed a desire and a need for this, and it strengthens our grant opportunities. So that's the whole point of these.
Indeed. Okay, it looks like we got everybody on this one. I'm going to go ahead and share the results of this. As I expected, good turnout in this ward. You guys win the walking competition. It's not a competition. Most folks 3 or more times a week, and then they're down 1 to 3, and at least a couple of people don't walk or bike very often. We'd be curious to know from those folks 2 things. One is there something that's missing in your neighborhood that would make you more likely, if something were to be added, like a shop or service that you would be looking for, would you be more likely to walk? Or is it an issue of the sidewalks and crossings? Is that something that is, I guess, keeping you from walking? That'd be something we'd like to hear from you. If anybody has any info on that they'd like to offer, we'd be very interested to hear that.
Well, I'd be interested, Michael. Are you asking, because the question specifically said go downtown, so there definitely are shops downtown. I mean, we do have Mickey's is, I think, really the only restaurant. I know we have Subway and McDonald's too, and we have Stocious. But I guess my question was, are you questioning why people aren't walking downtown, or why people aren't walking out to restaurants at all?
That's, I think, Milena, I defer to you, but I think the goal of that was to find out how many times you just like walk or eat in your area. I guess we supposed it would be downtown, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
That's absolutely correct, right? We just want to know how many times you're leaving your house via, foot or by bike, instead of getting in your car and driving somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. Brianna notes the sidewalks are narrow and the intersections are busy and not pedestrian friendly. That is likely why they answered that they don't walk very often or bike.
And Loretta, did you have something you wanted to add to that as well?
Yeah, yes, and it's with the sidewalks. For instance, on Cumberland Avenue, the sidewalk literally ends before you even get to Wilcox. And when we first moved here, I had kids who were still in, strollers. And for instance, there was no way for me to safely, with the kids in a stroller, walk them up to Bailey Avenue Park or Penfield Park. There was no way to, well, Wilcox wasn't even open back then, but now that Wilcox is open, if there were boating opportunities sponsored by the city down at Wilcox, there would be no way for kids to walk or ride their bikes safely to get down there. So that end of the north end of Cumberland Avenue, the lack of sidewalks there makes it a very unsafe area in terms of accessing Wilcox for anyone who's not in a car.
Okay. Thank you, Loretta.
But Wilcox is a fabulous asset. And so within this neighborhood, I believe that anything we can do, create a playground there, have canoe, kayak rentals available, would be a huge draw. And not only would there be plenty of room for people who wanted to just drive there, but if we did put in sidewalks, then people, and kids in particular during the summer, would be able to walk or ride their bikes down there safely. And it would be a great recreational opportunity for all ages.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know one of the things, part of the reason we're asking this is we're looking into the idea of what we're calling like a 15-minute neighborhood. Milena, if you want to give sort of a quick overview of that.
Sure. So the whole point of this next poll is to kind of track your behavior. It's a phase 2 of the questions that we just asked about what's missing in your neighborhood. So a 15-minute neighborhood concept is basically that a neighborhood should be able to fulfill 6 social functions: living, working, supplying, caring, learning, and enjoying, all within that 15-minute walking distance of your residence. In the city of Plattsburgh, it might be maybe more like 5 or 7 minutes because we have smaller neighborhoods in a smaller city. But the whole point is to give that level of convenience, so you don't have to get in your car and drive to the store just to get milk and eggs, etc. So the zoning in the city right now is very exclusive. So we have industrial districts, we have residential districts, we have commercial districts. So the point of the 15-minute neighborhood is to kind of allow for more flexible zoning, to allow for more mixed uses, to create that convenience in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the question we wanted to ask here is when you're running errands, what's your most common destination? Is it, and this is should be multiple choice, as some folks have pointed out, but we're trying to get your most common destination here. Give folks some time to think about that.
So knowing what the common destination is will give us an idea of what's missing in your neighborhood. I know we just kind of had that question, so this is sort of a play on that. Obviously, grocery store, you typically need your car for that, but.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looks like just about everybody's voted. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out in a second. And see what the results are. There we are. I'm getting a little lag on my end on this. So yes, overwhelming grocery store looks like the predominant, followed by a little bit of parks and recreation. Nobody selected other, which I would have asked, what is the other thing that folks are finding in their area? So yeah, it's I think important to try and figure out what people want to connect to. Okay. And then next question kind of gets to, how do you feel walking around? Do you feel safe or comfortable walking around the neighborhood any time of day or night? And this can be either from an aspect of lighting or personal safety, crime, to is it safe to walk because of just the conditions of the sidewalk or the amount of traffic? Okay, it looks like folks have voted here. I'm going to go ahead and share the results of that. And it looks like overwhelmingly people feel comfortable walking, though at least one person doesn't. That's the person I want to talk to. What's missing? Why don't you feel safe? Let us know. Smash that like button. Let us know what it is. Josh, you have something you wanted to add?
Michael, I probably was your respondent on the no, and it really has to do with the context of our, being out and walking, and which is essentially the beach, from the condos, from Set Point to the beach. So, I believe it says any time of day. So, 12 hours a day, certainly no problem. Dawn to dusk, for instance, or 15 hours a day in the summertime, of course. But after dark, the walking trail in the woods adjacent to the beach is fantastic. It's just I wouldn't say I feel completely safe after dark.
Okay. Is it more of an issue of just lighting? Or
maybe, and just really just my frame of reference is having some sort of routine, not police officer, but park patrol, some presence that routinely, and certainly we see the city workers here and there during the day doing their work. But as far as an actual park patrol presence, I don't know that I've ever seen one.
Right.
Now, that's not to say the police don't respond if they're asked to respond. That's not saying that at all. I'm just saying just a routine, presence would be really, I think, beneficial in that way.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed some folks, Courtney noted they'd love to see a more accessible way of accessing the pedestrian bridge to get to the waterfront instead of stairs. That may have actually been to a previous question. Brianna notes, I appreciate the new crosswalk in front of McDonald's. And Bruce says, I feel safe, but not sure my wife would agree. So thank you. Thank you for that. And next question we want to get to, I think we just have 2 or 3 more poll questions, and then we'll just open it up to some of the fun stuff, as Milena says, because polling isn't fun, apparently. So yeah, we wanted to ask, do you think it's important for the city to establish design standards? One of the things that we asked earlier was, do we think the city's in good shape? The city can only really address the public areas that it has control or jurisdiction over. We don't really have much control what happens on private property with the private sector. But if the city's looking to redevelop some areas, we have the opportunity to maybe institute some design standards that might raise the level or quality of design up a little bit.
It'll also allow for a mix of use in the neighborhoods as well. So if you live in a predominantly residential neighborhood, but you think it would be convenient to have a small convenience store or small neighborhood, small neighborhood store or whatever, it would allow that to happen as long as it met certain design standards, as long as it met certain setbacks, it looked a certain way so that it didn't disrupt the community character.
Exactly. Okay, looks like we got everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share those results, and it looks like pretty overwhelmingly folks would support that, though a couple of people have reservations about it. I'd like to hear from those folks. What's your concern? Would you be worried that it would be stymie creativity, or would it be a disincentive to development? Let me know what I don't want to lead the witness here, but let us know why you weren't as happy with the design standards. Okay, and then let's see what we got next here. Nope. There we go. And I think now we're on to the fun part.
Yes, the fun part. So this is the open discussion part of the workshop. This image on the screen is just an overview of Ward 5. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. We're all talking about the same part of the city. I just put a few places of interest here. We talked about Wilcox Dock. We have Georgia Pacific, and the City Beach and the Crate Center. All right, so this is our first opportunity for change, for discussion. This is along Cumberland Avenue. You can see Wilcox Dock here to the right. So there's a large undeveloped parcel along Cumberland Avenue. We just wanted to get some feedback from you. What do you think would be the highest and best use for this parcel? I mean, do you think that it would be a great area for an expansion of the single family residential? Do you think it'd be a great area for mixed use? A park maybe across from Wilcox Dock? So we just want to get some feedback from you of what you think the best use would be for this property.
I did notice earlier in the chat, Courtney noted a question about whether there's possible opportunity for more development in the big grass field across from Wilcox Dock. So now's the chance if you had anything you wanted to offer on that.
Can you hear?
Loretta, did you have something you wanted to add?
Courtney's here.
Oh, there's Courtney. Okay.
Hello.
Hey, we live right up against that big parcel of land, and some of our ideas around developing that would, I guess it's maybe a lower lift than a huge residential development, but putting walking trails in, just having a way for people to feel like maybe they're out of the city by still being in the city, and maybe that those trails could connect somehow into the Wilcox Dock area with a park, and just ways of sort of really upping the residential use of that area. There's a lot of fishing tournaments and derbies and different things that go on at Wilcox Dock, and there could be some opportunity for maybe like increasing tourism right there in that area if we had the ability to bring in like some food trucks, or just kind of like make that area a little bit more of a hub when those events are happening as well. And kind of like what Loretta said before, The accessibility to that space would be really important. There isn't a sidewalk that leads directly there, and people are often walking on the road and walking their dogs and jogging in the bike lane, and it's only a matter of time until, you know, something bad happens. And so even just at a baseline, getting that area accessible and walkable would be a huge improvement.
Thank you. Sorry, Loretta, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, my thought is, well, first I have a question. I've always been under the impression that that land couldn't be used because of contamination from either when, I can't remember what entity it was, whether it was one of the oil companies or if it was even the military had some kind of operation going there. I've always been under the impression that it's land that's contaminated, and that's why it.
Bruce is nodding enthusiastically as you've been asking about that. And we were looking into that too. Bruce, if you had anything you wanted to add, you know, if you had some insider information, maybe we can get a little bit of a conversation going. Someone said maybe it was jet fuel storage.
Yeah, that's what I have been told, that the base used it for fuel storage. And I don't know if there was ever a mitigation cleanup done, if there was ever a mitigation project done there. But before we go too far down the rabbit hole in terms of, you know, coming up with ideas, I think we need to know realistically if that land is even going to be safe to use as an outdoor area for people to gather.
Yeah, I think it has real limited use. My understanding is there are restrictions on, there's several different parcels there, but there are, you know, directly next to Kellogg, there's some restrictions on that piece of property all the way over to Saley, and then further around the corner. The city knows about this. There are significant restrictions as to what could possibly go in there. From my point of view, you know, Cumberland Ave, I mean, when you start going out that area, you're extending out from what is primarily a residential area to start thinking about putting in commercial use there. Got to be pretty careful. This is a kids and dogs area. So, you know, I think we want to really think that through pretty carefully. But once you look at all the restrictions, that's why there's not something that's happened already. The reason why that property is available is because of those restrictions, which, yes, do have to do with groundwater, oil, and other stuff that I'm sure Chris and the city staff know all about. We can get more into that, but it gets into the weeds.
Yeah, and that, you know, kind of puts a damper on putting a playground there, or I don't know if we could even really do trails, you know, through the wooded part and make that available for people, because again, I think the contamination there, we just don't know. And to open that up to the public as a recreational area, it would be fabulous. However, I don't know if it's an option.
Well, plus it's not owned by the city. My understanding, it's all privately owned. So you've got landowners that own that property, and I got to see what their plans are. And if you want to change what their plans are, then you'd have to offer compensation that would make sense to them.
Well, true. Though one of the roles of a comp plan is to try and get test the pulse of the community, see what people would like. And if we start to say, you know, as a community, we'd like to see it go in this direction, then it might help sort of push things along, not looking to force anybody's hand, at least not in this case. But it might help to, I guess, ease things along in the direction that might make the most sense from everybody's perspective. Renee, is that how I pronounce that? Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't specifically know the extent of the contamination there, so I don't know what could be done, but I know that, you know, parking lots can sometimes cap off any contamination you have on a parcel. I think that Bruce and I actually kind of differ on the viability of commercial there, the rationale for commercial there, because it is, I live right on the other side of that property, like to the west. I kind of think that maybe because it's all residential on the southern side and then suddenly transitions into industrial, maybe commercial small scale commercial could be a better transition there. And then you also have two markets to potentially draw from. You've got the residents on the southern side, and then you've got all of the people going to and coming from work on the industrial side.
Okay. Yeah, I think some of the future of that property will be likely decided a little bit on the remediation options there and what could be allowed. But I do believe that some lightweight, not too much disturbance might help. It might also depend on the extent geographic of the contamination. But we wanted to get folks' input on it.
Yeah, the way it's always been explained to me is that you can use that property could be used. It's not that dangerous, but if you were to start developing and digging into it, you might start having problems. But I don't know that for sure.
Okay. One of the thing we want to get is what we're calling some visual preference ideas, get a feel for what folks think might fit in their neighborhood from a development standpoint. So we have a couple of images we want to show you, and we want to ask, how well do you think that this type of development that you see here would fit into your neighborhood? Do you think it would be a nice fit in the neighborhood, or maybe a nice fit somewhere else, not in your particular area? What are your thoughts?
Just to add a comment here, like Renee said, there's kind of a harsh juxtaposition of residential to industrial in Ward 5. And I think this slide kind of, the idea behind it was, is there a gap that we can bridge with, some higher density housing, et cetera, or mixed use?
Mm-hmm. Okay, we got just a couple more people, I think, need to vote. Though we may have some folks in the room that are actually here for a different ward. That might account for why my math is off. But okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Oh, there we go. So it's kind of split. Some folks feel it's really nice along some of the main roads, whereas others feel it's possibly a good fit in some parts of the city, but not necessarily right here. So particularly, again, like the other questions, I want to talk to the folks that vote no. Want to know what in particular about it you think doesn't really fit, and try and get some input on that side. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, feel free to toss them into the chat, or let us know you want to speak. Okay, I'll go ahead and so now we picked a Ben & Jerry's because everybody loves Ben & Jerry's, and nobody's going to vote no on that. But how well do you think something like this would fit into your neighborhood? Okay, one or two more folks waiting on, and I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And here it's a little bit more decisive here. Folks seem to feel that it would be really nice in the neighborhood, with a few folks believing it'd be nice only along the main roads or possibly in a different neighborhood. So thank you. I think that helps. And let Emily save that. And as we go on, take another break back to another opportunity area here.
Okay, so this image is of the GP campus on Route 9. We know GP's workforce and output has been shrinking for a while now. So the campus is kind of oversized as is. So I just want to have a conversation around, not only, adaptive reuse for this area. Obviously, like we said before, the city does not own this, but we're looking for vision. We're looking for ideas here so that we can properly zone and have conversations with our community members about these opportunities for change. So, the conversation is, adaptive reuse here, and then also that vacant parcel behind GP, they own all of that. What's the highest and best use for that undeveloped property? As you know, there's quite a few different condos and townhomes on that west side of Route 9. And then obviously there's commercial along the other side leading into the city beach. So, opportunities here for, we talked about better connections to the city beach, and then also development of this vacant parcel. This is also kind of a really important gateway into the city of Plattsburgh. I know all of you have seen that sign at GP that says "Welcome to the City of Plattsburgh," which is pretty sad, actually. So maybe some gateway opportunities as well here. Just, we want to open up the conversation about this whole area.
Maybe this can also tie into the, the feedback we got earlier that there were some folks who are actually interested in some light industrial development. So if anyone wants to share that thought too, but Loretta, I see you've raised your hand. Oh, you're muted, hang on.
Okay. Yeah, it is amazing that's, the welcome sign is that view when you come into Plattsburgh. And it's pretty bleak. And yes, Georgia Pacific has definitely, done some work to try to, make it less industrial looking. But certainly there are a lot of opportunities there for, making it a usable area, possibly, whether that be commercially or in terms of some kind of residence, or the whole mixed use idea that would sort of buffer the impact of a factory. Between Church Oil on the one corner and then the Georgia Pacific campus, there's nothing attractive about it. And that's what I've lived with since I moved here. But it's certainly not indicative of what the ward actually looks like. And it's pretty stunning when you go around the corner, and it's prime real estate. I mean, it's so close to the Northway, and it is such prime real estate with its proximity to the lake and the views that come with that. And anything that we could do to, again, if it was mixed use, perhaps that would soften the impact of the industry that is at that intersection there.
Courtney asks if, we could have outside artists come in and paint art murals on some of the GP buildings that might help soften it a bit to that effect. I think Josh, maybe you had your hand up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, Michael, I echo Loretta's sentiment as well. I think, and what Emily or Milana was saying about the just the area is sort of the entrance point, the welcoming point. That can't be emphasized enough, both at the GP campus as well as the Cloverleaf down, or the the frontage, so to speak, to the Cloverleaf down at Treat Center. That area as well. I can imagine folks who commute with the ferry each day, visitors from the ferry or visitors from Canada, historically that use that exit and that Cloverleaf to gain entrance, whether it be the city beach or the Crete or even down through downtown instead of taking the next exit. It just can't be emphasized enough how much this is the foyer or one of them, of course, but it's a significant one, and we need to stay focused on that.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Renee?
So I think that parcel could be a good opportunity to develop, as Loretta and everyone else echoed, more of a mixed use type of space, but we don't have a ton of industry in the city of Plattsburgh. And that is kind of a large parcel. And it just reminds me a lot of the former airport up in the town of Plattsburgh, and we're, I think, getting ready to do a smart growth plan for that parcel alone. And we're looking at it not just as continued industrial development, despite the fact that that's what's immediately adjacent to most of it. We're looking at, can we zone places like tech park type of thing, like a business incubator. So I think that would be a really interesting planning exercise if we got closer to an opportunity for redevelopment at that site.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I don't think industrial development has to be ugly. I agree. There are really cool tech parks that exist now that have trails for people who work there, et cetera. So I think you're right. Industrial development is a possibility, and it doesn't have to look like it does now.
That ties in perfectly to a couple of chat comments where people are commenting they're okay with some industrial uses, but partnered with some strong design guidelines so that it goes to the community.
We got about 5 minutes left. Hoping to wrap up with a few more quick questions, and then we'll take any other sort of general questions. While we got this slide up, we wanted to know what people think of this double wide pathway. Something like this, would you like to see something like this connecting some of the wards in downtown? See how folks feel about that.
Yeah, we're aware that there are missing sidewalks in your ward, but this visual preference survey is asking, would you rather see something that's a little more multi-use? It's basically a sidewalk on steroids.
And it looks like, oh, there we go. I think we've got about everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And yes, it looks like pretty much overall folks would like something like that. I'd like to hear from the folks who may or may not use it. I'd like to know what some of their reservations might be. That's always useful. And Brianna notes, please, we need wider sidewalks that are separate from traffic. Josh, Renee, and Tom have also commented. Multi-use is very important, especially in our ward where there are people who are over a mile from downtown and want to bike. And it would tie in well, Tom notes, with what already comes out of the bike path near the beach. Thank you. And then the last one, before I think Melina takes any last questions and wraps things up, we wanted to ask on this image here, how do you feel about a roundabout at the Margaret, Boynton, Cumberland Avenue intersection? This is a trick question because there's only one correct answer. I won't tell you what it is.
So I will add, I don't know if the engineering is feasible to do this at that intersection, but I know there are issues with that 5-point intersection.
And we probably have some folks coming in for the Ward 6 meeting now who are a little confused. But okay, looks like we've got everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And a little bit diverse here. Most folks think that it would greatly improve vehicular and pedestrian flow. Less feel it may improve the intersection, but it's not worth the effort. And then some folks just don't agree with the roundabouts. I'd like to know what your concern is with that. Is it driving through it, or is it walking through it as a pedestrian? Because that's one of the unfortunate downsides of roundabouts, is they're not usually pedestrian friendly. So thank you everybody for that input. And I will let Melina take it from here on any last notes and comments.
So that's it for our presentation tonight. I know it seemed really brief and it was super fun, but this isn't the last step. Now we're going to take all of the information that we gathered tonight and at all of the other work sessions with the other wards, and we're going to put that into a draft comprehensive plan. And then next steps will be presenting that plan to the public. So we'll hold another public hearing, present that draft plan to you, and get some additional feedback. Hopefully that next meeting can be in person, and it'll be more of a intimate work session. And we're going to be posting updates throughout the process on our website, on our Facebook, etc. So please check those out. We're also posting all of the other ward work sessions on YouTube, and we'll have a link to that on the city's website, so you can check those out as well. And also use that city info email address. Keep sending us comments. It doesn't matter when. And then also, I think there's a comment page on the city's website as well. So keep sending us your comments and your thoughts. And thank you again for everybody for coming tonight.
And if you'd like
Thank
to
you,
have
Milena.
another interaction opportunity that does include games, there will be a late night for the planet session on March 9th. So check out their Facebook page, and the city's been sharing the information as well. We look forward to that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
This was very informative. This was really good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And perfect timing for the next show.
Perfect timing. Should we wait a few minutes, or do you think we should jump in?
I don't know. It's after 5 o'clock. We might as well get rolling.
Get rolling. I like it.
Let's do this.
All righty. So hello, everybody. If you're still here, you know that I'm still Milena Tamer. If you're just joining us, I'm also Milena Tamer. I just want to thank you guys all for coming tonight. The city is very excited to embark on this planning effort. It's been 20 plus years since we've taken a hard look at the city's existing conditions and coming up with a vision plan to foster strategic planning going forward and economic success. Economic success is, super important to create that vitality of a place, but we know that there's more than economics that makes a place great. It's the people who live here, and it's the social fabric that we weave together as a community. So tonight we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts about the city of Plattsburgh, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and how you think that we can make it a better place to live and a better place to be and a better place for people to come and visit. So we're going to roll through a presentation that's going to have a number of poll questions about the existing conditions of Plattsburgh and how you interact with that environment. And then we're going to ask you a few questions about what you think is missing in the city of Plattsburgh to get some feedback so we can help scope that vision. And then we'll kind of drill down into your neighborhood. And this conversation will be about Ward 6, which is, the downtown core of Plattsburgh. And then we'll kind of have an open roundtable discussion about some opportunities for change that we see in Ward 6. So the poll questions will pop up on your screen. You'll have about 30 seconds to answer those, and then we'll have a discussion around them. And then, like I said, then we'll kind of have an open roundtable about the opportunities for change. So jumping right, before I do that, I'm sorry, we've had 5 of these sessions and I'm trying to rush through it. Zoom etiquette stuff, please keep your microphones muted. Use the raise hand option if you'd like to speak. Or you could use the chat option if you're more comfortable with that. We will be monitoring that and reading your comments out loud. Next, I'd like to introduce our consultants who are here with us tonight. We have Saratoga Associates and Behan Planning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Shear with Saratoga Associates. It's a real pleasure to be with you folks. As Milena said, it'd be great to be doing this in person, but these Zoom sessions do tend to be very informative. No better place to get input about Ward 6 for the future than from the people that live in Ward 6. So we really look forward and encourage your input during the session. And I'm joined here today with my colleague, Emily Gardner. Emily?
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Gardner. I'm the project manager for Saratoga Associates for this work with the comp plan. And also simultaneously, we're working with the city on finalizing the waterfront plan and a couple of the DRI projects. So that's right in your neck of the woods this time. So we're looking forward to hearing what else you might have to share about your neighborhood and the rest of the city. I'll hand it over to Michael.
Thank you, Emily. Michael Allen here from Behan Planning. We're assisting in the comprehensive plan process, and I will be peppering all of you with some poll questions throughout the meeting. So I look forward to doing that, and I'll let Milena take it away.
All righty, just 1 second. I'm plugging in my laptop. It's about to die. Okay. So the first slide on the screen here, this is just an overview of the zoning in the downtown neighborhood. As you know, zoning controls what uses are allowed and the parameters around those uses. So how big a building can be, how dense a site can be, and other design standards. So in Ward 6, as we said, which is the core of downtown, it's a mix of residential and commercial along Margaret Street and City Hall Place. There's also some industrial along the waterfront and some recreation uses as well. So it's a real mix of uses in downtown. This next slide is just a map of Ward 6. I just wanted everybody to be clear and aware of the area of downtown that we're talking about. It's the area highlighted in yellow on your screen, which is the core neighborhoods and the waterfront. Now we're jumping right into our slides, and I'll give it back to Michael.
Okay, thank you. One of the first questions we want to ask you is, what is your favorite thing about the city? Why do you choose to live here? Is it the natural assets, arts and culture, the recreational opportunities? Hopefully that should pop up on your screen right there. Having a little bit of lag on that, but we want to get your input on why it is you choose to live here. And you can choose multiple questions, multiple answers here. It's multiple choice. Okay, I'll give folks a little while longer to respond. We're still waiting on a couple of people, if my math is correct. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and let's see what the results are. Okay. Wow. Okay, so it looks like walkability scored heads and tails above everybody else, with a close tie of natural assets, historic district, and restaurants. So that's very good. Notably, affordable housing is the only thing that did not really get any points. That's something we've heard from multiple folks. The availability of housing right now is an issue, and that's something we're looking at right now. So thank you, everybody, for that. Next question we're looking at is, what type of development do you feel the city needs more of? And based on the results of that first question, I think I might know what some of the responses are going to be. I'll give everybody a little time to provide some input on that. Okay. Folks are thinking hard about this one. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and close this, and let's see what the results are. It looks like mixed use and residential housing are the two highest rated items. Notably, with mixed use, you get residential housing in with the commercial. So that's kind of 2 votes for residential housing, 1 vote for commercial in some ways, but that's very useful. Thank you very much. Make sure Emily has a chance to collect that, and we will move on to our next question, which is, how would you characterize the physical condition of downtown or of Plattsburgh? Oh, no. Let's try that again.
You're giving away the answers.
No, I didn't. It was too quick.
Do not be swayed by other people's opinions.
Yes. So do you think it's well maintained, or needs some love, or poor condition, or worse? What's your thoughts? And in particular with this question, I want to start getting people out of their shells and providing us some input. I'd like to hear in particular what aspect of what part of the city do you think needs the most help? Is it the streets, the sidewalks, buildings, etc.? I'm going to go ahead and share the results. If folks have any particular specifics in mind regarding this question, feel free to use the chat, or I might call on you, as I did with Art, and just ask him to come out and say what he thinks. I do think people do have the ability to unmute themselves.
Yep.
Art, I see you've unmuted yourself. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Okay. My wife and I have lived here for 50 years. We've raised 3 children here. The area we live in is run down. It's seedy. It's dirty. And we just can't seem to get everything. We're not getting much help from the Office of Building Inspection. Everything is complaint driven. I walk 5 miles every day, or Brinkerhoff and Court, Beekman, Oak, and then downtown. And it's really almost a horror show. I make complaints. I be complaining every day, all day long. We need more help from the Office of Building Inspection. Also, in the wintertime, there's a code that says that 24 hours after a snowstorm, the police department is called to go out and identify all properties that are delinquent. They do not do that. That hasn't been enforced since the inception of it. So consequently, we have to walk in the road. And that, when you're walking on a one-way street with your back to traffic, that puts you in a perilous position.
Okay, Art, is it a particular, what do you think would improve the city the most if we were to focus our attention on one element?
Well, I think if we can get the building inspectors designees, they drive around their cars and their vehicles. If they would get out and they would look, they will see the same thing that I do. I have 31 photographs that would horrify every one of you. I try to bring these down to the mayor's office. He wanted me to go through this channel right here. I've shown it to some of the counselors before, but Plattsburgh needs a lot of work. And there are places downtown as well.
Okay.
You'd be horrified at.
Well, I know Rachel agrees with you that, we need stronger code enforcement and property maintenance. And Christopher notes that our city center really does need to be clean and presentable. This is the main district where people come to shop and live, so it needs to look great. We
live in the college area. There's so much college housing. We are going to have a registry that starts on the 1st of April, and that is a very positive thing. So we know who the landlords are. But we need, we want these properties to be nice looking. We want the grass cut and the snow shoveled, leaves raked, and the garbage, not all over the streets.
And that, as I think Rachel's noting, the rental housing, I don't know if that's student housing or just general rental housing, is not well maintained. So that's something to discuss. on the opposite end of the spectrum, one of the things we wanted to ask is, what is your the favorite thing about your neighborhood? Why do you choose to live in the ward that you do, Ward 6 in this case? I want to go ahead and give folks an opportunity to weigh in on that. Is it the location? Is it accessibility to services or the recreation opportunities? What do you think is the most important thing? Okay, and we just about have everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And it looks like location is once again the highest rated thing about people's neighborhoods. It seems that everybody likes living in the ward that they're in by the location. Housing availability and accessibility to services close second, with recreation coming in third or fourth. Very good. Okay. And then next question, sort of the opposite end of things. What do you think is, what do you feel is missing in your neighborhood? One of the things we're trying to define is what can we do to try and develop each neighborhood to have everything that you need? So what this next question is, what do you think is missing in your neighborhood? Is it transportation options or walkability, affordable housing, etc.?
And while you take that poll, I just wanted to respond to Shelby, who asked whether there will be another opportunity to discuss ideas for what can be done in Ward 6 in the city. So later on, we'll have some opportunities for some specific project areas. And then at the very end, we usually plug what the next steps are and how you can keep in touch. But there is a feedback form on the city website. And there's also on March 9th going to be a session of Late Night for the Planet. If you'd like to participate in that, it's been shared on Facebook. We'll have some games involved, but another discussion opportunity.
Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Okay. Looks like we've gotten most people now. Let me see. Give it another second. And I'll go ahead and share the results. And it looks like transportation options and affordable housing, not surprising, are the things that are most missing in the neighborhood. We've heard that about the housing, the lack of available housing stock from another number of people. But we're also noting shopping convenience and a little bit of safety and security, cultural activities. So it's a little bit of, this is a little bit different than some of the other results we've gotten. No other though. So I'd like folks to weigh in on this as far as if you have any particular things you want to note about your response on that. Please let us know. If you feel free to raise your hand or let us know you want to speak or use the chat feature. We can give your mic a shot here. Okay. And looking at next question, as Milena noted, we're going to go through a bunch of these poll questions first, and then we're going to get into some of the more in-depth discussion about certain areas of town and what the opportunities are there. Our next question is, we wanted to know how many times a week do you walk or bike to places in your neighborhood? It doesn't have to be downtown. It just in your neighborhood. How often do you walk or bike to places around your neighborhood? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Looks like we've got everybody, and I'm going to end that and share the results. And it looks like most folks, similar to Ward 5, I think because of proximity here, where we get a lot more folks walking to places. There are still a couple that say they don't often walk or bike downtown or to their area. I'd like to hear from those folks. I'd like to know why. Is it because the sidewalks or the crossings are lacking in their area, or is it would they be more likely to walk if there was different shops and services nearby? Let us know if anybody has any thoughts on that. I'll give you a chance to speak up. Rachel notes that I live close to downtown, but I can't afford to eat or shop there weekly. We need better jobs and affordable housing. Thank you, Rachel. If anybody else has any thoughts on what else might allow them or persuade them to walk or bike more in their area, let us know. The next question is really about the idea of a 15-minute neighborhood, which I'll let Milena sort of describe briefly before we get into.
All right. So the whole point of this poll is to track your behavior in hopes of developing what's called a 15-minute neighborhood concept in the city. In Plattsburgh, it's probably more like a 5 or 7 minute neighborhood because of the size of our city. But the whole concept is to create a sense of convenience so that each neighborhood could support and fulfill 6 different social functions: living, working, supplying, caring, learning, and enjoying, all within that walking distance of your residence. We all crave convenience, and the whole point of this is for us to find out why do you get in your car and leave that 15-minute bubble, and what could we add in that bubble to make it more convenient for you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just give folks the opportunity to weigh in on this. When you run, we go. When you run errands, what's your biggest, most likely destination? This could be multiple choice, but we wanted to find out what's the most common destination in this case. So we're only letting you pick one right now.
But if you are commenting other, we would like to know what your other is.
Yeah, let us know what's the other destination. Okay, give it another few seconds here for folks to answer, and we will share the results in just a second. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share the results. So grocery store is the number one destination in the neighborhood, followed by parks and recreation and other. Rachel notes don't have a car, so not necessarily, but I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be car driven. We want to give people the option of walking, biking, or driving, and hopefully we can work more toward that, so you don't always have to have a car to get to some of these places, which I think is the idea behind the 15-minute neighborhood. Indeed. Okay. If anybody else has any options on what other would be, what are some of the other destinations that you have, or perhaps more importantly, what destinations don't you have in your immediate neighborhood that you would like to see? Okay. And following up on that, we want to know how comfortable do you feel walking in your neighborhood during any time of the day? Do you feel comfortable or not, or it really depends? And this can be because of, the conditions of the roadway or sidewalk or lighting, or you just don't feel safe from other people. It could be a variety of reasons that might dissuade you from walking at day or night. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and share the results of this. And it looks like most people feel comfortable, but a couple of people don't. I'd really like to know. Oh, Art has raised his hand. I don't know if you're responding to this question or the previous one, but I'd like to know, get some feedback from folks. Why did you vote the way you did?
Well, there are a lot of parties that go on in our area, all-night parties sometimes. And there are also a lot of drugs in our area. So I feel safe during the daylight hours, but at night, I would never want to walk the streets around here.
Okay. Thank you.
This is something that's been going on for a long time. I taught at Seton Catholic School some time ago. We had somebody come in from law enforcement. He told our staff that within 15 minutes, he could come back with any kind of a drug you want. We're supposed to have police patrols in our area, foot patrols. That was approved some time ago, but it hasn't come to pass.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else, do you want to share, what I know it more than one person noted that they didn't feel comfortable walking all the time. If you could let us know why, we'd like to know what's on your mind.
I think it's especially interesting for a neighborhood that seems like everybody really valued the walkability of this ward.
Yeah.
So if you love that you can walk, but you don't quite feel safe, we'd love to know why.
Mm-hmm. I don't see any hands raised or new chat. I'm going to move on. Next question is, we want to ask, do you think it's important for the city to establish design standards that would sort of raise the level of quality of design for any new development or redevelopment in the city? As was noted, the city can only sort of control what is in its jurisdiction as far as maintenance and upkeep. We don't have any control over private sector or private properties. So this might work toward sort of, I guess, beautification or increasing the visual appeal of the city with new development. Okay. And we still have one or two folks that haven't voted yet. There we go. I'm going to give it a second and share the results. And it looks like most people agree that design standards would be a good thing, though a couple of people noted that they wouldn't. I'd like to know if we can ask if folks have any particular reasons why they don't like the idea of design standards. Do you have concerns about them? If so, what are your concerns? I'd like to hear from that. Do you feel that they would stifle architectural creativity or what? Let me know why you didn't vote yes on the design guidelines. Rachel notes that downtown buildings grew into the beautiful architectural buildings they are organically. They didn't need design standards. Neither do we. Would the arts murals be allowed? Oh, that's a good question. One of the things that's going to probably come out of the comprehensive plan is probably some zoning changes. And I think with that, maybe some form of design standards or guidelines, either now or eventually. So that's something we would want to keep in mind, that we wouldn't want to prohibit or stymie the arts and murals and so forth at that. So I'll make note of that. Rachel has a higher viewing of all architects necessarily than I do. So, okay. Now I will pass it back to Milena to talk about some of the opportunity areas.
Okay, so now's the fun part. We're done with the polling session. So now it's kind of an open workshop. We want to hear from you about some opportunities for change that we've identified in the city. This first image on the screen, this is just an overview map of Ward 6, just so we're all on the same page that we're talking about this area of the city. All right, so our first opportunity for change. This image is on North Catherine Street. This is the old Seton Catholic School campus. It has been recently renovated to a veterans clinic, but they don't have current plans for that large building on the east. And obviously there are some, undeveloped properties, a huge parking lot, a green space, and then across the street, I believe the church owns that green space property. Before we dive into this, I just want to, state the city does not own this property. We cannot dictate what happens here, but we want to get a vision from you. We want to get some ideas so that we can help foster those, either through conversations with our, private property owners or through zoning. So it's just, big picture ideas here. We want to know, what do you think is the highest and best use for this property? It's, it's an interesting area because it's highly residential, but it's close to Cornelia Street, and there's a church here, and there is some commercial development. So we want to get some feedback from you.
Yeah, and I think just as a reminder, I think everybody should have the ability to unmute themselves. So if you want to speak up, we want to allow people to speak freely and hear what you have to say. Rachel notes again, we need to embrace modern architecture just as much as historic architecture.
Can I speak on this one?
Certainly, Shelby, go ahead.
Okay, great. I walk this block every single day, and I know, living in the area, the district that we do, a lot of people have dogs, and there isn't necessarily a dog park. The dog park that's all the way over on Bailey is incredibly small. I don't know if you've been to Peru recently, but they have a pretty big dog park. And it's a great place to meet people, which, would be nice to have, it's a community builder. And it might help clear up some of the streets. I kind of agree with Art that our streets are getting grody. So besides having a dog park, which might help with like the dog poop problem, if there is any way that we could build more, and I'm sorry I'm slipping this in here, I just want to make sure I get it in, but if we could have more garbage and recycling receptacles on the streets that aren't just downtown, because there's 2 on Margaret, there's 2 on Brink, and then there's like 2 other ones, and they're always like together for some reason, but there aren't any just along the sidewalk. And a lot, like, I walk everywhere. I live on Oak Street, so I'm always walking everywhere, and there's garbage covering the sidewalks because there aren't any receptacles. So maybe a dog park for a place like that, but also if we could have receptacles. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Shelby. Can't believe she put in a plug for garbage and recycling bins. That was very bold. Okay. Other folks, Walter dittos more trash receptacles. So that's being echoed also. Any folks have any other thoughts in general or particular about the North Catherine area?
Another topic of conversation I'd like to bring up here is, North Catherine, the street itself. So obviously this is a connector to the highway 87, and cars tend to go a little bit faster because it's kind of a bypass area. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts about, how to calm traffic through here. Does it make sense to make this a 1-lane and add a bike path instead of having it be a 2-lane road? Or make 1-lane parking? I'd love to hear some feedback about that.
Okay. Kurt notes, urban park, more creative activities for children and all ages. Kurt, is this particular to this particular neighborhood we're talking about here by the Catholic school?
I can stop typing. I can talk.
Yes.
That's a good question. I would take some thought to think about that, but I would say generally that our parks in the city are lacking in active space for seniors. Most of our parks have the same playground equipment for children. So I think there's space for more innovation, but they are youth oriented: skate parks, playgrounds, soccer fields. But our parks don't have a lot, especially for seniors. There's cool exercise equipment. The new green space in Morrisonville on LaPierre Lane has some. And this is an area, especially if there's a VA hospital across the street or on that same block on the north of the hospital, I think would be, and the church there would be nice spot for some senior amenities.
Okay.
Oh, it's also very close to Catherine Gardner's too.
Oh, great point. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We'll take a quick break before we go on to some other stuff. We wanted to ask, what do you think as far as a visual preference survey, if we're looking at new development in the neighborhood, how well do you think a development such as this apartment building might fit into the area? I'm going to go ahead and launch that and give folks a few seconds to give us a thought. Do you feel that this would fit in with the neighborhood, or it might be nice but not necessarily in this area, or do you feel is it too much?
Just a note while you guys are filling out this poll, downtown is predominantly single family homes, and most of those homes, not most of them, a lot of those homes have been turned into multifamily homes. And this image is obviously of a higher density multifamily housing unit. So we just want to get a feel of if you think this would fit in downtown in your neighborhood.
Okay, it looks like we still have a few folks that haven't quite chimed in yet. Give them a little bit longer. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So it looks like most people feel that it would be really nice in my neighborhood. A few people think it might be nice, but maybe along some of the main roads or in other parts of the city. Others feel totally out of place in the city. I'd like to hear from folks, what are their reservations? Do you think it's just too much, too tall, too close to the street? Let us know what your thoughts are. Trying to get a feel for if we're trying to promote additional housing options in the city, what sort of flavor we can get, try and work toward. Okay, and with that, I will let Milena take it on to our next area.
Okay, so our next opportunity for change, this is the large parcel off of Saranac Street that NYSEG is currently using as a remediation site. They're not going to be here forever, thank God. They have been there for a while, but eventually this will be, an undeveloped property right in the core of downtown. There, obviously because it's a remediation site, there are some, regulatory issues with developing this, but we still want to get a vision from you. What do you think would be the highest and best use of this property? As most of you know, the Saranac River Trail is being extended through this property this summer with 2 additional pedestrian bridges. So does it make sense to make this, additional park space in downtown? Does it make sense to have this be a parking lot in downtown, or some other sort of passive use? As I said, I think there are some, regulations here that might stymie, mixed use development, but we want to get some feedback from you of what you think this space could be and be successful.
We had looked at this a little bit during the waterfront revitalization planning process, looking at, carrying the Saranac River Trail along the waterside, but then what to do with the interior of the space, whether it should be, commercial development or something else. So if anybody has suggestions or thoughts on that, or things they would really not want to see, that's also helpful.
And I think one thing everyone should realize is that a lot of the parks and stuff in other communities are built on areas like this because they're not going to be reused for residential purposes. So a passive parkland, even something with courts and those sorts of things is absolutely viable on this property.
And Rachel suggested that since this is in such close proximity to the school, this might be a good spot to look at a denser housing development, like with apartments. And Kurt's also suggested this is a great location for a park because there aren't really that many on the south side of town. You've got river views, potential river access, maybe biking, walking, connections to the middle school. Shannon is asking whether it's in the floodplain. I think it's high enough.
It shouldn't be. I think
I
it's
can
high
double
enough.
check that for you.
Yeah.
No, it is not.
Yeah, and the one note that was made that there's a park right next door. Maybe this has different programming, something that can complement, not compete with what's in the immediate vicinity.
Yeah, to build upon that, I mean, I hate to be a wet blanket here, but I feel like downtown has a lot of park space. And we have McDonough, we have the Samuel D. Champlain, we have Trinity Park, but they're all passive park spaces. And you're probably not going to go there with your family and hang out. So I don't know that the city needs more just green space. But I like what Dan said, how maybe you could have some courts here. You could have something to engage people, like a place you want to bring your family, and it could have, you know, activities for multi-generations of people.
Absolutely. I mean, you can never have enough room for pickleball courts. Am I right, Emily?
I was waiting for the plug. I was waiting.
It is so popular. But the thing is, you have that and it creates a note of community. We were talking about things that create a sense of community. You can have tables, you can have cookouts there. There's a number of things you could do on that footprint.
Yeah, we just recently did a project that updated some tennis courts that really weren't being used, converted one of them into 4 pickleball courts, and now there's usually a line of people waiting. We also put in some little chess tables that kind of double as small little lunch tables if you're waiting. So, and there's a disc golf course right nearby as well. We don't really have kind of the trees on this property to make it interesting for disc golf, but just another idea for maybe somewhere in the city.
Those alternatives are all very popular and they're all pretty low cost, particularly the disc golf.
The town of Plattsburgh just converted some of their tennis courts into some sort of a soccer game. I don't really understand how it's played, but it's some sort of soccer game where like different striping on the tennis courts, and it looks really cool. But yeah, I think we have one more opportunity for change if nobody has any other comments for this one. Oh, we have a couple more. Never mind, I lied. So this opportunity for change, this is on J Street next to the city marina at the terminus of the Terry Gordon bike path. So again, the city does not own this property, so this is just visioning big picture stuff, what you think would be the highest and best use here. There are a couple of warehouse buildings. I don't know if they're operational, but this is just such a great location, being at the end of that bike path near the Oval in that Point Historic District, and then next to the marina, the train station. Like, this is just such a viable area for development. So we just wanted to open up the conversation to what you think could be a great use here.
I just wanted to mention that when the livable community had their meetings, they talked about moving the Hamilton Street playground down by J Street where the trail starts down there. And they were talking about having things that were for different age groups. So that would, I don't know if that's, I don't remember all the details to it. And back on when we were talking about the last thing, I would think we'd probably want something that would draw some revenue, because we're always talking about trying to get more revenue in the city, and there's not much property for that. So possibly some other smaller housing there, and if there's enough room, maybe something else, like, I don't even know about a park, if you can put one on J Street instead. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, the park in Hamilton Street is the saddest little park.
Oh, it's pathetic.
Shelby suggested a youth center and also something like a roller rink, pool hall, stage space. I mean, that could be a really multi-use facility.
Yeah, I love some of those ideas. Actually, one question I have with regards to the stage space, I'd love to see a roller rink too, but stage space, what do you guys have in the city for like sort of music venues nowadays?
So the city purchased an outdoor stage, I believe it was last year or the year before. And that was put down at McDonough Park along the river. And then for COVID, it was moved down to Harborside so that people could drive up and still watch concerts. So we do have a movable stage that is placed downtown.
Right. I knew about the McDonough Park movable one. I wasn't sure if there's sort of larger or indoor venues.
The Strand Theater.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know if anybody has been over to Arts Riot in Burlington, but it's this really cool mixed use space where they have arts and they have a music venue and also food. And they do a food truck Friday, which is super cool. So yeah, I love that idea of just having a social gathering place down on the waterfront.
And Shelby also noted when we first started talking about, music opportunities that it seems to be at bars. So if there could be sort of an alcohol-free space that might accommodate some events and isn't super expensive to use in the meantime. Sounds like maybe some sort of multi-purpose community center building. Any ideas on where that should go while we're talking about it?
I'm not sure if those buildings are able to be adapted to that or not. That's a question mark.
Yeah. We don't know the details of these warehouses and the proximity of the railroad, but if there's another location, whether
I think there's a need for it.
Well, keep it in mind, and if you have ideas, just throw them in the chat box.
Okay. So our next opportunity for change. So this is not vacant property. This is not an opportunity to develop. This is an image of the core of the residential district along Brinkerhoff, Couch Court Street. Large sections of Brinkerhoff and Court are historic districts. And a lot of the, large Victorian homes have been converted to student housing. So, we just wanted to spark the conversation about, that conversion that's taken place over, X number of years, how people feel about that. Do we control it? Do we not? Do we let it happen? Does that turn into multifamily housing? Do we let that happen? And also, like I said, most of this is historic, and a lot of the other neighborhoods are zoned, strictly residential. But then you think about Zook Subs, which is everybody's favorite sub shop in the city. I shouldn't say everybody's, I don't want to speak for you, but a lot of people's favorite sub shop, and that's not, allowed by zoning. So, this also brings back the conversation about that 15-minute neighborhood and creating that convenience. Do people want to see more of that in their neighborhood? Or are you close enough to City Hall Place and Margaret Street that you want to keep this residential? So just, we want to spark all of those conversations. And again, raise your hand or use the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with.
This goes back to what Art was saying. So many of those places in those areas have been bought up by people and turned into college housing or multiple housing. We've got some places that are single family homes that have got multiple college kids living in. I think we have to take a hard look at that and start being stricter about, I don't know if you can stop people from buying them, but I would think there must be some kind of code where you can stop these people from converting some of these places into multi-family places. A lot of these places don't even have enough parking when they end up making them larger. That's all I got to say right now.
No, it's a great point about student housing. And I think that's an interesting conversation because, COVID has kind of shifted higher education to, online platform. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think that's going to be pretty typical. So that means students don't necessarily have to be in Plattsburgh to go to Plattsburgh State. So what happens to all of the student housing stock? What happens to SUNY Plattsburgh campus? Is there some sort of adaptive reuse? Does it just turn into multifamily housing, which, a lot of people have said is missing in downtown? Is it that missing middle housing that we need? And I think that's just a conversation we need to have so we can look at zoning and how to allow that or disallow that or, whatever the community would like.
Right. The tricky part is, we've identified, more housing options as a need, but once we develop that housing or create the housing stock, we don't really have a control over if it goes to students or if it goes to others. Art, I saw you have your hand raised. Did you want to add something? You're muted at the moment. There you go.
These are the 3 toughest streets that we have to deal with in the city of Plattsburgh. The violations that occur here are numerous and unrelenting. Every time a building is vacant, somebody scoops it up and converts it into college housing. And over the years, what happens, the buildings deteriorate. At the end of a semester, the owner puts them back together cosmetically and then go through the same process again. So year after year after year, they just start to fall apart. Somehow the zoning has to be changed to stop this.
I'm speaking out of school here. I don't know if it's legally viable, but there may be some option that could be looked at regarding owner, not whether it be owner occupied or having some sort of provision in the zoning code of conversion of any of these has to be, you have to be, let's say, a local owner. You have to reside in the city and not be like an owner who lives down in Florida who's like a absentee landlord. I don't know if that's legally viable, but it's something we could look into.
Michael, I can tell you this, that my wife lived on Court Street when she was a student at Plattsburgh, and there was a house manager right there on the premises.
Did that make a difference?
It made a big difference.
Okay.
That's a great thought you have.
Kurt, go ahead.
Well, I guess I just want to make the point that students are a pretty easy target, but are only a piece of the problem in this area. And as you described the challenge there, Art, I think your description was really great. And what you actually said was that, what I heard you say was, students are not the problem. It's landlords that are maintaining properties, and then rent gets depressed, and people don't take care of properties when they're not paying a price that keeps them accountable. And so I work for the college, and so I'm a bit, and I also live in this neighborhood. And so I'm a little sensitive to these issues. And I'm also, I think, out of my word on this call. So I apologize for that. But, I guess I just want to make the point that anything that we do to try to address those challenges needs to address the different kinds of cause and effect relationships that drive that cycle of housing. And that there are small fixes that can occur that don't place the blame on 18-year-old kids. And when we were all 18 at some time and all made 18-year-old choices. So I just want to make that point, I guess.
I agree with you, Kurt, and you said it very well. It's the landlords that are especially the absentee landlords. But we're hoping with this registry right now, we will know who the landlords are or their designee, and things will improve. So we have to be optimistic.
Yeah, I agree that absenteeism is a big piece. And it's interesting to hear about your wife's experience with a property manager on site. And if they're, I don't know how you mandate something like that, but that, I think there are good solutions there that you brought up.
I think
one thing in conjunction with you talking about the college, the new president, Dr. Inietti, is very visible. He's out and about, walking on the streets. He has a good pulse of what's happening. And prior to Dr. Inietti, there's never been a good relationship with the college and the city. So hopefully we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, SUNY's right in the core of our downtown, and they're always going to be a part of our downtown. As Emily said last night when we were talking with a I think it was Ward 4, I don't remember. You know, it's a transient population, but they're always going to be here, right? So we need to have a good relationship with SUNY Plattsburgh. And, you know, we need to talk about ways to foster that relationship instead of, you know, looking at our zoning code and trying to look at ways to keep them out of our neighborhoods. That's not what we want to do. That's not the intention here. The intention is to create that relationship with SUNY so that residents and students can live in a community and be comfortable there and you know, have that relationship.
The problem is the owners of the building. That's what needs to be addressed. Yes, kids are going to be kids, but if there's some oversight and these out of state and out of town landlords, they should have somebody in the city that's checking on their buildings. Maybe they do. I don't, if they are, they're not doing a very good job of it, but they need more people, more eyes on their properties and taking care of them. They take in the money and they don't put anything back into them. They aren't keeping an eye on what's happening at their places. There's no excuse to have garbage all over the place. Well, if they need 5 more garbage cans, they should buy 5 more garbage cans. Like, it's small stuff like that. They just don't do it. So we need some changes there, or maybe more enforcement. I'm not sure which.
Okay. I wanted, Rachel had questioned a minute ago, can we limit the number of houses that we let be student housing? I think technically, yes, there is a mechanism to do that. The downside of it is there's no way to enforce it. There's no way to actually police it or figure out if people are actually following that. So that would be.
I can add to that. So right now in the city and in this district, you actually have to get a variance from the zoning board to convert any single family housing into multifamily housing. And there's a special use permit required to do that. So there is some oversight by the zoning board in regards to conversion.
Right. It's just, we don't have a say in whether or not it's rented to students or rented to young.
Right. No.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we are on the next slide. Okay. Yeah. So before we finish, one more visual preference survey we wanted to ask all of you. This is another example of some type of development that might come into the city. We wanted to get your thoughts on how well do you think that this particular development might fit in your neighborhood. Don't be swayed by the Ben and Jerry's. Don't automatically vote yes, as I know some of you might be tempted to, but I'm going to go ahead and launch this, and we kind of get a feel for the kind of the look and feel, the vibe of what's going on here in this photo. Do you think this fits in with the neighborhood, or do you feel it's out of place? What are your thoughts?
So this is a little bit tricky for Ward 6 because it includes, you know, Margaret Street, City Hall Place, where this could absolutely fit. But, you know, more importantly, do you think this could fit on those streets we were just talking about,
Sure.
You know, Brinkerhoff Street, Court Street, et cetera?
Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that. Okay, looks like we've got everybody, I think. I'm going to go ahead and share the results, see what we got. It looks like most people, about 70%, feel that it would be really nice in my neighborhood, or really nice along some of the main roads, with just a few folks saying possibly a good fit, but not here in this neighborhood, though nobody feels it would be out of place of the city. Okay. Thank you. Looks like Kurt, you wanted to add something in particular. Go ahead.
No, I don't. I have a question. I am wondering, Shelby's asking a question here. It says the exterior would fit, but can we find a grant or two? No, sorry, the one above. And you're talking about the exterior. What about the inside? And I'm wondering if Milena or Emily could, or somebody could give us an explanation of how design standards might work in this case, and relationship between interior and exterior, and what design standards are designed to do.
I can field that if you like. Okay. I do a lot of design standards and form-based zoning codes. So, I mean, there's a wide spectrum upon which you can go from. You can be extremely strict to giving people a lot of flexibility. I think what we're aiming for in this particular case might be something along the lines of some general form standards that dictate kind of the size and shape and massing of the building, and say, you know, if you can stay within those bounds and use some nicer exterior materials, then will be much more flexible about what's happening inside the building. We care less about what's happening inside the building because we want to, give people flexibility and mixed uses and diversity and kumbaya and everything. But as long as the outside of the building kind of fits in with the neighborhood, I think that's kind of the level we're aiming for. We don't want to be too strict. We're not like a Nantucket where we're saying it has to be shingles and they have to be this color gray. So that's, I think, where we're aiming, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think
we
it's
don't
really
really
important.
have any say in what happens inside the building. That's going to be up to between their interior designer and the New York State Building Code.
Yes, Rachel has had a question about, what's happening on the inside of these buildings. I think kind of relating back to our previous discussion about living conditions and maybe these buildings aren't maintained very well, and, comment about an apartment that doesn't quite sound legal. Again, that would tie back to building code. And I guess it would have to be something, unless there's some sort of system in place for inspections on a regular basis, it would just have to be reported, I think.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's, and what we're hearing is, the city right now with its current staffing and budget is having difficulty in keeping up with all the things that it has to maintain already, and difficulty policing the stuff. That would be adding a whole nother level of I guess, responsibility on the city crew as far as that level of, I guess, monitoring.
I've seen, does the city of Plattsburgh have I think the city of Albany had almost a sort of like the see something, say something, but more of like a fix it ticket is what we used to have on my college campus. But if you thought there might be a problem, there was just a little, comment box, email address, or whatever you could submit an issue to.
Mm-hmm.
The city has the city info email, but I'm not sure as far as the, see something, say something.
Yeah.
I just want to catch up a little bit on some of the chat here. Rachel noted that what about living conditions for the renters? This is a problem everywhere in the city, not just here, that landlords need to take care of their properties and some here don't. Kurt notes improved living conditions are key, design standards, safety standards. Rachel notes, and you're talking about exteriors, but what about the inside of buildings? And they meant landlords not taking care of the insides, converting houses into apartments without permits, or making tiny apartments that don't have windows. And in response to the note of Emily's note about reporting, it was noted landlords here will evict you if you report issues in the apartment. We don't get inspections, so those are good considerations.
I see a question about new inspection rules for high density housing. I'm not familiar with that. Is that a new city policy, or?
The city is developing a registry for multifamily housing, so landlords will have to register, pay a fee, and then they'll be inspected annually.
So maybe that will help with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the hope.
Okay, then maybe that does address some of that.
And Rachel's wondering if that's for all apartments.
I believe so, yes.
Melina, that's not correct.
It's not for all apartments. Sorry, Shalise.
Nope,
It's
sorry.
only for new ones going forward?
It is for high density apartments and multifamily dwellings.
Do you know what's the threshold for high density?
5 or more unrelated individuals who do not count themselves as a family.
Okay. Thank you. I think with that, unless we have some more, Melina was going to take us through some next steps.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We really appreciate the feedback. This is a very exciting planning process. As I said in the beginning, the city hasn't done this in 20 plus years. So we're excited to go through this right now. Next steps are going to be taking all of the feedback that we got tonight from you and from all the other work sessions with the other wards, and actually drafting the comprehensive plan. And then once we have a draft version of that plan, we will present that to the public and get your feedback again. Hopefully next time we can meet in person to go through the plan, have it a little bit, more intimate, more of a workshop session. This was great though. We got a lot of great feedback. In the meantime, we will be posting updates on our website, posting updates on our Facebook. You can also continue to use that city info email address, send us comments, anything you forgot to say tonight or you wanted to add, please use that email address to send us comments. In addition, I believe there's a place on the website where you can just add a comment. We will be posting all of these workshops on the city's YouTube page, so you can check out all of the other ward workshops as well. Other than that, we will continue to engage the community, and we look forward to continuing this process with everybody. So thank you.
As I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I'll mention again now, there will be the upcoming late night for the planet session on March 9th. We'll continue the discussion. There'll be some games. It'll be a little more interactive, but
way more fun.
Feel free to join us there as well. Check that out on Facebook.
Thank you for remembering to promote that, Emily.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it. I got Kurt looking back at me to make sure I do.
Well, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
I have saved the chat.